Hi there. Just about 2 months, give and take 40 to 50 days after the gargantuan GE40, known as the mother of all Malaysian elections, a new government today is fully in motion. Just a few hours ago, earlier today, we witnessed the complete cabinet being sworn in with an additional 13 new ministers and a suite of deputy ministers, totaling the cabinet right now to 26 ministers, 23 deputies with 25 ministries, and of course a few brand new ministries as well. Some expected faces, some fresh on the job. On The Nation today, we take a closer look at who has filled these roles and the ministries that have merged and more. I'm joined by Nordin Abdullah, Crisis Management Specialist, for our conversation today. Nordin, welcome to the show. Welcome back, I guess.
Thank you, Jessie. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Now, prior to this, whenever there's a big announcement, we always sort of know who's coming in and who are filling up the roles. But this time, quite unusual because this list was not released prior. There was a lot of speculation, predictions, but then we see some very unexpected, perhaps, surprises.
Well, it's interesting how Tun is playing the game, and I think for him to be able to manage the political process, to manage the cabinet reshuffles, the ministry reshuffling, I think it's best done quietly and behind closed doors, so that people don't get stuck in the speculation mode where you keep over speculating and people worry too much. So I think in this case, I think it was a very good decision to do it that way.
Well, fantastic, because if we can bring up that entire list of the new cabinet right now, we'll see that there are some faces who we are wondering, well, can this person fill that role? And I think one of the biggest pleasant surprises, if not, is of course welcoming the youngest ever minister in the cabinet, Syed Saddiq Abdul Rahman, as the Youth and Sports Minister. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, well, of course, I also sit on the board of the Malaysian Cricket Association, so very close to youth and sports. I think there's a lot of challenges in that sector. Ministry of Sport have a few scandals that they are still trying to work their way through, and I think the new minister will probably be there later this afternoon looking at that. And I think the reports, I know the ministry and people in the sporting sector are looking to find out what really happened, and I think that's one area. And I think another area that the sporting bodies are looking at is a fair and just approach to funding for the different sports. We notice that a lot of the team sports who are doing very well get disproportionately different funding from other team sports that are not doing so well. So we want to see the Malaysian flag, of course, raised high on the national and international stage.
Well, these are two very important agendas, youth and sports individually, as well as having them under one portfolio as well. What are your thoughts on someone who's 26 years old, who's never really had a job before per se, coming in to fill up these big shoes? I mean, you would assume you would need someone with a sound sort of experience as well to know how to undo some of the problems or issues or even scandals that has previously been in the ministry.
Well, it's going to be a tough ask for a 26-year-old or a 62-year-old. So I think the fact that he's got youth on his side will mean he'll be able to stay up late at night, take the late meetings, go in the office early in the morning, because it's going to be a big task dealing with some of the challenges in there. And I think the ministry, of course, has a team there. I'm sure he'll be getting a lot of reports. And if the Prime Minister thinks he's fit for the job, then I think we can see that he's fit for the job. And Tun's also said if people aren't fit for the job, they're going to
Get the boot.
Get the boot. So he and all the other ministers are basically trial by fire right now.
That's right. Well, talking about age and age being not being a number, I guess we also see that our Prime Minister, 92 going on 93, the oldest ever Prime Minister, not just here in Malaysia but across the region, perhaps even the world. But under 40, we've got Syed Siddiq, we've got Yeo Bee Yin, Hannah Yeoh, and a few others, in fact, who are all under 40. This brings, the notion fresh blood to the cabinet. What are your thoughts on that, having sort of, a lighter and smaller number in terms of average age as well?
I think it's good. It's going to be a lot of work. I think you will need the energy of youth, and if you don't have the energy of youth, it's going to be very difficult for you. Malaysians went to the polls. They demanded a change, and I think they're getting the change. And I think if Malaysians don't get that change also, I think it's going to be just as difficult for the current ministers. So when we see how they manage what they will be learning in the next few days, the information that goes public in the next few days as well, will also be very interesting for the Malaysian public to look at, and how they will consume that. It will be very interesting.
In your opinion, is this a new lineup? Are we just filling in the best of the best, or are we just fulfilling a campaign promise? Because we are quickly approaching day 100. As promised by the PH government, they have a few things that they need to tick off their list. 30% of women count in the cabinet. That has been achieved as of today. But overall, are these portfolios, are they really cut out for the job, or do you think we've just placed who is relevant?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think time will tell. If we look at some of the people's background, some of them do have a good background in dealing with problems. If you look at people like Hannah Yeoh, she was dealing with a lot of problems and dealing with Selangor. So even though she's come into a deputy minister's post, I like, again, what the new government is doing for women. And I think that gender diversity is going to be a key thing for Malaysia moving forward. For some of the other ministers, I think we're going to wait and see how they perform. And I think Malaysians now have become very vocal, and I think they themselves can't rest on their laurels. And I'm sure they're probably having a nice lunch today, but I'm sure after lunch they need to be at work.
That's right, straight to work. With that, we take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we will continue our discussion right here on the brand new Malaysian Cabinet, The Full Closet. Welcome back to The Nation. We're talking about the brand new cabinet that was sworn in this morning. The picture looks complete, but we've just got news that also 3 new unannounced ministers will bring that total count of ministers in the cabinet up to 29, as well as a new ministry, the Social Wellbeing and National Unity Ministry, which will be parked under the Prime Minister's office. So that, of course, we'll have to wait and see who will be announced. But for now, we're looking at sort of the rearrangement of the full picture of some of the ministries. We see a new ministry emerging: Energy, Technology, Science, Climate Change, as well as Environment. Minister Yeo Bee Yin, she will be taking on this portfolio, as well as Natural Resources, Water and Land by Xavier Jayakumar. What are your thoughts on this rearrangement?
Well, I think those are 2 very interesting rearrangements. If you look at, especially from the perspective of crisis, environmental crises are very common. If we look at what happened in Malaysia a few years ago with the flooding, this really impacted the nation. So I think looking at the well-being of people, we need to take into consideration the economy and the environment. And I think getting that right is going to be very key. And then if we look at the Sumber Asli, the natural resources, I think these 2 ministries will have to work very closely together. And I hope that the 2 ministers also will be able to work together and look at how best to manage this massive natural environment that Malaysia has.
We look at this new structure and it seems kind of clear. The lines are pretty clear. Why do you think this was not outlined the way it has been previously? Like, why has it not been rearranged up till now?
Well, I think when you look at any government and any cabinet, it needs to be fit for the time in which it is operating. And I think this is probably the formula that's best for now. And I think if we look at the challenges that Malaysia will have in the future, and the things that they need to deal with from the past, I think this is the best way to put that together.
So we see the dismantling of the green tech, what was known as KETA, the Green Tech Ministry, Green Technology, Water, and Energy has now been dismantled, as well as MOSTI is not there anymore. But this will also mean that perhaps could this be one way to curb corruption?
It'll be an interesting case study to see if corruption can be curbed that way. Of course, when you break things up and then put it back together again, I think the components of that those different ministries will then need to act in a certain way and in a sense behave themselves properly. And I think all Malaysians hope that corruption is being curbed. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Green Tech Corp. I'm not sure if they will survive. Where will they move, or will they be disbanded? And I think they'll definitely be. Malaysians, of course, have done a lot of good things. So a lot of the key resources, the human resources in those ministries, need to be retasked.
Does this give you reassurance that there will be sort of a new breath of fresh air to the way things are run in the country? Or do you still feel a little bit not so positive?
Well, I'm always positive, but at the same time we need to be realistic. If we look from a foreign perspective, a lot of countries now look at how countries manage the environment as a bellwether, or as a way of testing how developed the country is. So if you look at Europe, for example, or Australia, we manage the environment as a key resource. If you fail to manage that key resource, you fail to manage the resources of the country.
Right.
So I think that is going to be a key area for the country to move forward.
So we will see reform then through to its meaning.
We hope so. We hope so.
Okay, let's talk about the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Now it will have to work closely with the likes of Japan and China, as well as the US. But what can and what will, perhaps in your opinion, the Foreign Ministry choose to do in terms of reviewing projects, for example, with China, and even perhaps try and damage control, or if you would like, crisis management?
Crisis management, yes. Well, I think Datuk Saifuddin is, of course, a very diplomatic man. He has the experience from the previous government bringing forward into this government. He was always very vocal on things that needed to change, but at the same time he was also very diplomatic. So I think when Malaysia looks at renegotiating contracts, renegotiating projects, it will take someone with a soft touch to be able to deal with that problem. At the same time, Malaysia wants to be part of the nations that are out there trading. Malaysia is still a nation that trades a lot. So foreign affairs and that kind of relations between the different countries, the different multilateral agreements that Malaysia is part of now, managing that and handling that well is going to be key for us moving forward.
That's right. So a lot of work needs to be done, and like you said, after lunch, perhaps seated in their brand new chairs right now.
Yes.
Getting down to business. We take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, more on the brand new cabinet. Welcome back to The Nation with me, Nordin Abdullah, Crisis Management Specialist. We've been talking about the brand new cabinet, the full closet, and some very interesting surprises, as well as the excitement overall to see this new government get down to work. Before the break, we spoke about the age groupings, as in there are many new ministers who are below the age of 40, as well as some of the new ministries that have been rearranged so that there's a clearer and better structure as well. Nordin, what are your thoughts within the civil service? 1.7 million civil servants in the country. Prime Minister has said if heads need to go, if they need to roll, they will roll. we also look at the standards of working within the civil servant account, civil servant mentality as well. So much to undo and polish up here, so to say.
Yeah, undo and redo and do again. I think, I mean, the Malaysian civil service, the Malaysian government is the largest employer in Malaysia, employing 1.7 million people. And in that effect, the Malaysian people are the largest employer in the country.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw in the last election was people want more from their civil servants. And I think all civil servants from the very top down to the bottom are on notice. Some people have been removed. More will probably go. Many will see retirement. A lot of civil servants were extending their retirement age and extending their retirement age. I think it's a great opportunity now for the new government to bring in the new talent. And I think that's one area that actually there's a lot of highly skilled, highly talented Malaysians in the civil servants that can come up and do things. And I think that's a great opportunity for this government.
Hindsight, what do you think we can perhaps learn from the previous government in terms of cohesion for all the new ministries, or all the ministries rather?
That, I think, I mean, if anyone's ever been in those multi-ministry meetings where there's 4 or 5 ministries involved, or even 2, everyone's worried about their turf. Everyone's worried about whose minister is more important and whose ministry is more important, and where does the budget come from, and all these kind of questions. I think if we can do away with that kind of problem and start saying, look, how quickly can we get this delivered?
Right. What can my ministry do? What can your ministry do for us to get to a solution?
Get it done.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people want to see things move. There will always be problems between personalities and different people, but I think the Malaysian way, and just having a chance to sit down and talk with people, I think that needs to return. The way that people respect each other, the way people speak to each other, and how that then translates into getting work done at the civil service.
That's right. Well, that's also really interesting for us to wait and watch, I guess, because we look at the brand new lineup, and there seems to be a lot of diversity and culture within the new cabinet as well. And I find that quite exciting. We also saw the International Trade Minister turn up for the swearing-in ceremony wearing a Kadazan Dusun headgear called the Siga.
Yes.
And that was beautiful to see, a huge representation for the non-Malay Bumiputra.
Yes, I want to congratulate the new minister on taking that step. I think it's an important representation that not only what happens here in Semenanjung, but we have Sabah and Sarawak.
That's right.
And having that cultural representation in front of the Agong, in front of the entire nation, I would have loved to be there to see it in person, and congratulations to the minister for taking that step.
But that also reflects perhaps the racial equality that awaits all Malaysians. So it's happening in the cabinet itself, and we hope that will sort of amplify and be an example to all.
Yes, I mean we see definitely a very good diversity in this cabinet, age diversity, gender representation, and now an increased representation of the different races and people from other parts of the country.
That's right. We talk about gender representation, and it was in the manifesto. PH government did say that its cabinet will be made up of 30% women, and they have delivered that as well earlier today. Another industry that's ministry that's really interesting to talk about is the Prime Industries Ministry. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yes, I think also headed up by
Teresa,
by another woman.
Lady.
I always remember Tan Sri Rafida Aziz as a very strong woman and someone who's been able to get things done, and we hope that these ministers can also learn from her example. And from what we've seen in the past, she's also a very strong woman, and it's also another area that needs some reform, and I think it will also impact also what happens in the Ministry of Environment. So I think that area is going to be another interesting area to watch.
Okay, well, you know, it's been a wonderful sort of day as well, as we put together all these new ministries, the ministers, understanding who they are. Some of them we know quite well, and some we're still getting to know. 100 days, how are we doing so far in terms of delivering what is promised in the manifesto?
Well, there's a percentage of things done. I think the big one, of course, was the GST issue. I think they're still working through how the new SST comes together. That will be interesting to see come through. I think also some of the expectations have also been managed. I don't think all Malaysians will be upset if not all of the promises are made within 100 days. I think there's a clear acceptance that some things are not going to happen within the 100 days. It's also a very American thing to put in place. But I think the first 100 days is getting there. I think Tun has had a lot of work putting together a new cabinet with a new formula, as it were. You've got new political parties, new peoples, new personalities. So I think Malaysians are giving a little bit of leeway there. But at the same time, I don't think this current government can take it easy. I think the Malaysian people, we saw the famous case with the HRDF. Datuk Ganas got up and spoke during a session with the Minister of HRDF and Human Resource Ministry, and that has seen automatic change. Within 1 or 2 days, Minister decided, look, if it's not done by Monday, we're going to solve it, and it was done by Friday. So these kind of things people are happy to see, and I think that's going to keep going. But at the same time, it's sometimes quick. We can make quick changes, but sometimes we need to make good changes as well. So it's better to get it right one time than try to do it quickly twice.
Which seems to be the way Tun M wants to move forward. He really wants to see a clear-cut way to clean up, so to say, and bring in those changes and implement those changes with his team as well. Nordin, any parting thoughts before I let you off today?
Wow, there's so many. I think congratulations to the new ministers. We look forward to seeing how things are developed in the next few days and months. Of course, I think the areas to watch will be foreign affairs, trade, business is of course looking very closely at how this happens, and I think that's going to be the key areas to look at.
That's right. We are going to leave you with some visuals from earlier today morning. Of course, if you'd like to get in touch with Nordin, you can do so. His particulars are on the screen right here. Do contact him on his website. Other than that, of course, keep it locked on to Bernama News Channel for more updates coming your way. And here are a few clips from earlier today as we saw our brand new cabinet being sworn in. That's it from us right here on The Nation. Have a great day ahead. See you next time. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.